Okay. What's today's date? 25th, right?
You gonna
Yes.
kick it off and
Yeah.
tell them what day it is and all that good stuff?
Today is January 25th. This is the Budget Committee meeting for the town of Waterboro. It is 4:32, and I'll start off by probably introducing ourselves. I'm Jim Southworth. I'm the chairman of the Budget Committee.
I'm Donna Barati, a member.
Julie Jazz, your town deputy treasurer.
Gary Lamb, Town Administrator.
Matt Boris, Fire Chief.
Tim Neal, Selectman. Ted Doyle, Selectman.
Perfect. Okay, so tonight we're going to be going over the fire department budget. And does anybody have any questions before I start? Anything?
Page 11, budget
11.
item number 70, and Matt will present most of this. He's got a variety of handouts, some of the things that Donna asked for, and he'll hand those out as we move through his presentation.
Okay.
After that, we'll go to the CIP. We'll talk about some work to do at the fire station itself in terms of insulation and a new fire truck. So, keep yours.
I've got a lot of handouts. We've got a couple trees that we put together for you. But all the information you're looking for is in here, and there's quite a bit of other stuff that I already had. Some of it may be a little bit redundant, but in different formats so you can see it differently in pictures. I will pass up some of that so you can have it. You may reference some of it. That's the one loose one I need to pass down.
Thank you, Matt.
You will have a copy?
Do you want me to do this now, or are you going to wait?
Yeah, here. Oh, because I don't want that.
Yep. Single sheet.
All right. This one here is informational, not department stats or anything like that. This is applied for the other stuff. Just so you see it.
That's good. The share.
Okay, so. Most of the paperwork in the first batch is stats running from 2017 calendar year. That's not the stats or the information for incidents are based on a calendar year for us in the computer system. So that's what you see. The title at the top, and if some of them maybe have a handwritten note on it too on the copy, so you understand which one's which. But in there, I'll walk you through those on those documents first, so you can get a picture of them. First one should be 2017 incidents. Then you have on the back of it on the back of that sheet you'll have a breakdown of average response times and of what you have there for the totals of the year. The next sheet you'll see 2017 actions as a result from the incidents, which
You're on a separate stapled group of papers now, or the same one?
is within that packet.
Within the actions from incidents?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Actions from incidents. And you see it should be the total is 2295 on the top. So sometimes the incident report is misleading to what we do because we only enter in the computer one time, and then each one of those is built off from it within. The motor vehicle accident has multiple actions, or depending on what type of event it is several different actions. So it may require more than one truck.
So if you send 3 trucks to a motor vehicle accident, is that 3 incidents or 1?
That's one incident, and we only track based on 2 incidents. That's maximum and for submissions.
Mm-hmm.
So there actually could be more, but the majority of them are 2 incident actions. Motor vehicle accidents will generally, you'll see them pop up if it's an MVA. You can see them depending on if there's injury, whether it's coded as whether there's injury or no injury. It may fall under the BLS category or ALS, depending on what the incident was. The next one you should have totals by month. month-to-month totals, and that's incidents, not actions. Not to be confused on that one. Then you have a 3-year review from 2015 to 2017. Everybody good so far?
Yeah.
And Donna had asked about burn permits. There's the report of burn permits. Warden's report for 2017 had 608 permits issued. And since we went to the Warden's report or started utilizing the Warden's report online, it's a free web-based program for the issuance of burn permits to avoid the $7 fee from the state. We've actually pushed that heavily both internally and externally. So external customers can go online and use that, which is the majority of those are, or there's a lot of them in there of that number, but there's no way to delineate which ones are which. So I can't tell you if there was 150 internal and then the remaining balance from customers. But then right below that you see state of Maine permits. It listed both under the state of Maine because actually every permit we issued is issued from the state of Maine, but these are either from the state of Maine website, which in 2017 we had 40 permits issued. So someone went on and paid $7 40 times for a permit. And then 233 permits were handwritten at Central Station. And that could be a variety of before or when the legislation the state had an issue with the Warden's report. We went back to the handwritten permits for a period of time. And we do some of the seasonals and campfire permits with the handwritten ones still. And if we're out in the field, we go out and we'll still handwrite a permit if someone needs one, so that we can, they may not have a computer, we just handwrite it from the truck.
So you need to add the 608, the 40, and the 233 for the grand total.
Correct. Yeah. But as you see, that there's a large number of people that really have taken part with the Warden's report online. We've had a lot of positive feedback with that. The next sheet you should see should be incident roll call. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
See, I put them in the binder separately, so I wanted to make sure that I was hoping to. Incident roll call, that's just hours for incidents and numbers. And it's broke down by company. So if you had a pen and if you wanted to write down company B or company 1, so you see B is right before South, and that's just so it lines up, but South Company 1 is on Pearl Street, that's the station in South Waterboro. Company 2 and 3 are out of Central.
So under B South Company, Scott Berkamos put in 101 hours and 45 minutes and went to 69 calls.
Correct.
Okay.
And then on the second page of that, you see the per diem breakdown and staff officers. And the bottom ones were hours that put in that there's no names associated. Moving on, the next sheet, this is partially what I think you asked for. This is I really don't like this document, and Gary and I have had some conversations about this one. And Pat Dunn has looked at this one as well, and there's some concerns, but we have not addressed those yet.
The hourly payroll,
Which one's that? You got there?
multicolored one.
Yeah. So this has the column, obviously the black names there, column with all black, and then orange, and then purple. You see the bold colored names are individuals that will be identified in both columns for per diem and call pay. Those become the problem ones. But because technically under FLSA, you cannot volunteer to do the same job that you're paid to do. It's a huge impact to us because we rely so much on the internal people that we have across the board. Okay? If you want me to slow down, I can. Second sheet is what drives the right-hand column on the previous sheet. And that should be the You see WFD call company payroll. Everybody see it? Okay. And then Donna had asked for cell phones, and that's the next sheet. Is that the last page in your packet?
Yes, and we also have a hard copy printout that Julie gave us.
They
On
asked
cell
me,
phones.
he doesn't have a copy of it. They
Oh.
asked me, and I printed out, and I can give you Brianna's if you want, just off the payroll sheet.
Oh.
Same thing then.
Yeah. Okay, any questions that I can address on any of the handouts now, or do you want to go back to them, or how do you want to handle it?
I don't have any questions.
No, thank you for all
We're good,
that.
thank you.
And the PDF issue online is an issue that I've asked Dave for some technical help with. When the server had an issue months ago, back in October, was the last time we were able to really get a report updated because DataTrack had to be reinstalled for our web records management program.
Okay.
So Pete Turgeon is the shift supervisor that does all the DataTrack uploads.
Yeah, because
so-
I had accessed it back in July and saw it, and I didn't do it again until October, and I got October's, and then I went again and I couldn't.
Yeah, and I asked them about that last night because it's not something I go on there and check it because I just check it when I need to on the computer, so I don't go to the website and look at it. So I think I addressed everything that you had yesterday in those questions. I passed out another packet, which is there's some good reading. I actually the cover sheet there. If you hit that address, you can go there and you can actually look at those directives. But these are all actually public sector compliance directives for the state. But I attached the one specifically for tonight, obviously for the fire department, so you can see that. But these are all the standards. These are some of the larger standards, and I didn't dive into all the written programs and the required training stuff. But so often I hear about the fire department's making all kinds of rules. Well, we don't establish any of this stuff. Most of it's all created from everybody in Augusta or the federal government. But there's a whole list of them there. It's fairly dry, boring reading, but we have all those programs, and that's included on the spot checks and or complementary safety works programs that they come out and evaluate, and we've gone through that same process. A lot of those directives, and there's some that aren't on this, it's on the front sheet, require annual testing, maintenance, certifications that we have no control over. And everything that has an expiration date on it seems to impact us. So, any questions?
Every now and then we get a comment from a lot of times from a CDL driver that says that they have more training than a firefighter operator would. And why don't you touch on the basics of driver training, number of hours it's required with an instructor?
I don't have so we do not have a minimum number of hours. Well, we have a minimum number of hours, but that doesn't mean that's the only number of hours before you're certified to drive a truck. You could be 40 hours. We just finished driver training, and so you can driver train with people that are allowed or authorized to driver train. However, those individuals are not allowed to certify or sign off on the individual on final testing. They have to go to 3 people within the department that have EVOC certification capabilities, so they can teach an EVOC, which is an emergency vehicle operations course, a 20-hour course, and they do drive time, didactic, so that they have a good knowledge base of what they're getting into.
That's what I was getting to, the 20-hour EVOC that everybody has to do.
Everybody to drive an emergency vehicle has to do an EVOC course, emergency vehicle operation or ambulance vehicle operations course. We go through that entire program, and it's cone course based. It would mimic a Maine commercial driver's license exam program. I did my Class B license however many years ago. Same program, same type of concepts. You're doing the same thing. You're parallel parking. You're doing the serpentines. You're backing up to orange cones. You're driving different vehicles. So there are a lot of similarities between the two, But just because you complete the EVOC or AVOC course does not mean that you can come into the Waterboro Fire Department and drive, oh, I can drive any fire truck here. Now you have to start doing training on each individual apparatus that we have. Because each truck is slightly different. We try to put as much together as we can, and that's why we try to have as many similarities when you get a vehicle, so that it doesn't take as long. But you have to look at some of the changes and go through that, and you practice. So whether it's a tanker, which is, you know, it's 60,000+ pounds versus an engine at 45 to 48,000 pounds. There are differences in each one of them and how they handle, or the ladder truck. So there are differences, but we are actually directed by the state too with a minimum driver training program, and we have to do an evaluation every 3 years on individuals for the driving capabilities. So some of the stuff that we do, and one of your comments in there about burn permits, about administrative cost, that is the least of our issues in maintaining the records for the 56 people of when is it time to review person X on which piece of apparatus they were signed off on. Now we've tried to do it so they're consistent, so that they all expire roughly at the same time, but then you're either tasked with an evaluation of a lot of people in every truck of the fleet at one time, or you spread it out. So pros and cons. So that answers your question. But any questions? So on page 11, I guess, is where I'm at. You ready to dive into that?
In the budget document, yeah.
Yep. How do you want to go through line by line? Because I don't want to.
Yeah, we'll go line by line.
Okay. So 305, is that where you want to start, or 304?
Row 305, yeah.
305. Yep.
305, we plugged in at 2.5% adjustment and 2% on per diem, and there are adjustments in there for some of the minimum wage impacts. One of the challenges that we face is that obviously with the minimum wage changes that I'd rather, you know, some of our rates, because of the level where they're at, we had to bump up our drivers because our driver's rate was under minimum wage, so we hit that up. You impact that versus the basic and intermediate and paramedic, and the whole flow chart you saw a few minutes ago, how it impacts the numbers. Before long, why do you want to be a paramedic or an intermediate if you can just be at the minimum wage level for where we're at? So it impacted different numbers across the board. You notice a change this year because we hired Chris Carpenter last year, the last of the captains. There was no other full-time slot in the budget for captains or any other firefighters. So this year it's for a full year versus a partial, because last year was on a partial basis. I believe we took 3 months out last year. We've proposed an adjustment for the administrative assistant with an increase in hours, with a demand and workload, and some of that's what we talked about. And we can dive into more about that now. I brought some samplings of some of the data, what we're trying to capture, and what we have to capture based on the public sector directives, and how she plays an integral part in being detail-oriented for capturing and trying to track this information. We shifted her hours last year from Monday through Friday to Monday through Thursday to increase the hours every day, because by the time you got in there, you get settled in, and you get working on a project, it's time to pack up and you're going home. It wasn't enough time, and it still isn't today. It's a huge problem. And usually by the next day, we've got a backlog of stuff from the previous day for her. We fluctuate between 50 to 58 people in that ballpark, between everybody, call force and per diem and full-time. Full-time has been status quo now. We've had, obviously, Chris Carpenter hired this past year, but aside from that, we haven't had any turnover of people since 2005, 2006. We've had very little turnover. So with that, let's see here. Oh, and obviously the retirement adjusts based on the wages.
On top of page 12.
Per diem, obviously that was the adjustment, we talked about the minimum wage, adjusted the numbers in there. I do have another sheet that was passed out, you see it looks like this. It has names, it has their rank beside them, so that was not on the other document because it just shows a bunch of codes, but you can see what license level everybody's at, whether you have an intermediate, paramedic, or basic. And really, if you don't know, I'll tell you, but intermediate or advanced as we call it now, but there's 3 different license levels. There's a basic level, there's an advanced level, and there's a paramedic level. And each one has different scopes of what you can do in your protocols, of what you can do for patient care. So, and down at the bottom you can see the breakdown of some of the shifts on that document. Any questions? So page 12. Obviously line 309, it's with 8 employees potentially, or 8 employees, sorry. 310, retirement. We have 312, travel. Anything?
The travel, that's just for going to classes and things like that?
Laura for mileage or for the class. For most of the guys for training, if we can put them in the pickup truck to go to class, we will. But otherwise, it's used minimally for Laura for some of her errands and what she does for her personal vehicle. That's the mileage reimbursement. And I believe that went down, if I remember correctly, but let me check that. Yes, went down a little bit from last year. Training has remained status. It was actually, from last year, it had been a little bit more. Under supplies, the gas diesel, based on our usage reports. And one thing, and I can pass it out now or wait, but I do have a rather thick document here that shows how we drive these numbers based on usage. I've trimmed out some of the way back years, but it goes back for as far as we've been tracking it. So we pump it in and we can analyze each year for what we've used for different, in each budget line. So each budget line has a tab where we can go back in and so we can track it per, anything it's assigned to. If it's assigned to a truck or if it's assigned to the station, we can see where those costs are.
You're talking fuel consumption only, is that what you're talking about?
Well, that was just giving an example, but with the fuel line, I can see what we've used for fuel usage in the last 4 years and what makes sense. So we base on that. Similar to look at your sheets here, but we go a little bit deeper sometimes.
Now, the fuel, you get it from like local gas station, or do we have a bulk fuel area?
We use the WEX,
The Wex card?
WEX card.
Yeah.
Was it
Right
Right
Express.
Express? So this Right Express WEX. We went to that several years ago. PIN code entry for each operator or driver that's certified. I would say 98% of the time it's purchased either at Lakeside or the Milk Room or maybe Lowe's if they come back from the hospital. There may be a few times in Biddeford, or maybe if they come back from Main Med from a call, depending where they're at. We down to 318.
Yep.
We got electricity. This one that's pretty straightforward. Heat. 5320, that's the telephone line. And that does include the landlines and cell reimbursements. 322. We're remaining pretty status quo. We've had great success with the program we've got in place. We track everything internally for each vehicle, so we can see when vehicles are due. We're pretty strict on the program for preventative maintenance and when we do it and how we do it before our pump testing, and because obviously we put before or after, and we go through the trucks on a regular basis. Trucks are checked weekly, ambulances are checked daily per shift, but And the trucks are checked minimally weekly, and we do a full report, front to back, entire truck. Actually, same type of report you would do for your Class B license. A full walk around the truck, and then we bring that to the inside compartments and all the equipment that we carry on the truck to make sure it's in service. But Mike Frazier has attained his ASE certification on working on emergency vehicles. It's called EVT, Emergency Vehicle Technician. So he's got his EVT in several different categories. Wherever we can utilize him to save significant dollars, we do the work internally. We don't get into brakes and stuff like that, and we don't jack up the heavy trucks because that's unless it's a tire in an ambulance. We've done that because we keep spares for those. We don't get into the whole jacking up because there's a whole different list of requirements in the Bureau of Labor for having mobile lifts for your fleet. We don't do that. That's problematic. But we don't get into the brake lines. We don't. That stuff we source out, and we'll either source it if it's a vehicle under warranty. It's sourced through a dealer, or we've used Hartford Truck Repair in Sanford, and we also go to Greenwood Fire Apparatus in Brunswick. They're the E1 dealer, and also for the ambulance, one ambulance is through Brunswick, and the other is through Sugarloaf Rescue Vehicles up in Carrasset Valley. They're the PL Custom dealer. And we, without, or some of this tracking, we don't track this as much as we used to because it became labor intensive to track it, but we were tracking $20,000 to $30,000 in savings by doing some of the work that we were doing internally rather than subbing it out. And we used to track it with binders and doing all kinds of work orders, but it became more of a pain to sit at the computer and do 15 more minutes worth of work on at the beginning and end of a vehicle than it was. We got the picture. We knew what we were saving at that point.
Majority of that was because of Mike's certifications, right?
In having the skill sets to be able to work on the vehicles.
Mhm.
All good?
Yep.
Matt,
Yes.
how many vehicles is that total?
12. And you will get a list in just a few minutes, but there's 12.
Okay.
You need me to make some more of these?
Yeah, I don't know if I have enough copies of those
Okay.
at all. I'm pretty sure I don't.
You got a colored one for me?
Oh. You're gonna want enough copies. Yeah. Okay. No questions on vehicles, and he's making copies of the fleet equipment lists as well. 323 equipment. We haven't deviated a lot from where we were last year. We tried to finagle some stuff, and we tried hard to get a grant for the tracks for that UTV. We didn't get the grant. Doesn't surprise me. We seem to strike out on that. Right now, the UTV won't be able to be used in the winter months without the tracks. So we've tried to shuffle stuff around. We're going to try to repair a few more sets of gear to see if we can squeeze that in for next year, so that we can use it during the winter months. And that does include all the SCBA air pack bottles we buy annually. We'll talk more about that in a few minutes with the air pack bottles and where we're going in the future. Any questions on the equipment?
Thank you.
How is that working out with the Scott bottles and the stag? That was the one we staggered. Was that the equipment that we
Yeah.
decided a few years ago to stagger and
How's
replace
it
it?
working out? It's okay. The problem is we have surplus. I don't say surplus bottles. We have extra bottles at times now because we haven't retired the other ones out, so we're running on bottles that we're trying to phase out because we started phasing them in. There's actually legislation. We can go into it a little bit right now too, but they're working on a piece of legislation that was Mike Frazier had worked with Senator Woodson, Representative Prescott, and another couple of representatives and senators that he's been communicating with. There's a company out west that works to recertify bottles. And if they were to get this to be able to, Maine is not willing to accept that at this point, or Department of Labor is not. They go by the OSHA and NIOSH and a bunch of other companies, but they're not accepting that the bottles can be recertified and approved for future use at this point. They're trying, because of the language of the way the law is worded today and their interpretation of it. They're working to clarify that and clean that up, and that potentially would have a huge cost savings to a lot of communities. One, we could send our bottles. So what you do is you send your bottles out to that company. You ship them out at a reduced cost substantially, for about $300 a bottle versus the $800. And you pass the bottle, you get a new stamp, you get the bottle back, it's in service again, and you don't buy a bottle. And that's shipped cost back to the company, and they want to do a bulk shipment through the manufacturer here, or the distributor here.
But to Donna's point, the ones that you bought a dozen or two a few years ago, even maybe before I started here, we're gonna be retiring a large number in another 2 or 3 years, right? That's why we need to stagger these.
That's why we had to replace them, right? And the reality is even after replacing those, the infrastructure that they sit in hasn't been replaced or isn't new. So we'll be after that's done, we need to tackle that, and you're going to see that on on the equipment list that he made copies. I don't know if you passed it out. But that's on that list as well.
The packs.
Yeah. CBA.
Yep.
Did I answer your question, Don? Okay. 324 radios and pagers. Pretty much a static fixture every year because they're worn and used every day. They break. They've been known to disappear at a fire in the middle of the night or at an event. If the clip breaks or they disappear, they fall. It doesn't happen all the time, but it does happen. Radios break. They've been run over before. And the pages
So
are
this
issued.
is a replacement cost?
No, that's all. Replacement repairs, programming. That's a variety. We try for 4 and 4. 4 pages, 4 portals is our goal, and then we budget for a couple mobiles. Every truck has a mobile VHF and a mobile UHF because depending on who you're talking to. UHF is what we're on primary for our frequency, and VHF is the sheriff's department type of frequency. We're Buxton and our mutual aid partners. Any questions on 324? $325. Building includes some additional funds for the hood. I personally think the whole line is completely under budget for what it needs to be for the repairs. I think we've wasted a considerable amount of money. We're not in compliance with the kitchen. We don't have a hood system. We're using it for commercial atmosphere in an environment that's we're telling other people they can't use it for, and we probably shouldn't be using it without the appropriate suppression system either. We waste a significant amount of money from that building. We've hired engineers and architects and people to look at it. And we continue to do that to keep telling us the same thing that we already know. We need more insulation. We know that. Thank you. We had lady stockings on the roof a couple weeks ago, or nylons filled with calcium, perpendicular to the edge of the roof to remove an ice dam. We spent $1,200 to have that done. Ice is back 3 days later. Rain came, washed it all away, it looked great. Snowed, the ice came back, you had another 4.5 inches of ice. I had a picture sent to me this past weekend, and there was, again, ice and water coming out of the back of the soffit, right at the corner of the building. For those of you who didn't know, we spent close to $20,000+ several years ago repairing those walls from water damage, and most of it was covered by insurance. The contractor came in and had got the whole back wall and do a lot of repairs. Probably that same issue is going to happen again.
Well, we have water going into the walls now because of the ice dams. So I think I'm glad we have 2 selectmen here tonight because whatever we do, whether it's just a steel roof or an insulated steel roof, I think we need to make sure that this is the last winter that heat can cause an ice dam like that. The building is going to rot away from underneath us and get molded. So We'll talk about that more in the capital improvement plan section of the budget. And remember, we had left out the kitchen hood because we thought that that was gonna be part of what went to the voters and
Right.
obviously was not passed.
Can I ask a question? So that hood has a suppression system in it, that's why
Yes.
it's so expensive?
Any other questions about the building?
No. I don't.
Where are we?
329.
329.
I don't know, 329. Oh, yeah, I do read that, 329. EMA communication hotspots. Part of the emergency management. We got it coded like this because of the EMPG, emergency management grant that we've been putting in for. So we kind of shift things around so we can allocate them for what they're being used for, to get reimbursed.
But that's not an annual grant, is it?
Yeah,
It is.
yeah, we put in for every year for the EMPG funds.
Mhm.
On O2,
Which is what, we're switching to what now?
331,
Ambulance.
ambulance, EMS, on O2. Not a lot of changes that you see here. There's enough on the state, that's for sure. You have call pay on 332. Reduce it a little bit based on numbers and where people are at. On 334, nope, nothing there. 335, training. That's EMS related training, continuing education, EMS classes. EMS classes now for an advanced program is up to almost $1,700 per program. It's ridiculously overpriced, in my opinion. EMT basic programs are almost $1,000. Paramedic programs are close to 10. And well, just so you can get a perspective of what the cost of the programs are.
That's to get those certifications. That's
get
not
those.
an annual cost.
Correct, to obtain those certifications.
Mhm.
And the training requirements for each one of those license levels varies, but every 3 years, it ranges from 52 to 72 hours. Every 3 years of continuing ed that we got to complete. So when you relicense, you better start pretty quick for the most part, unless you want to be doing water training the last year, because you're going to be out all the time. Granted, we do a lot of, we have an online program called Fire Rescue One Academy. The officers have access to it because I have the officers monthly do a training program for fire officer development. They can go in and they can do the online work from home, but we assign the same course out there every month, so everybody has the same review of a class that's been promoted or is put out there, but you can review that webinar. And then you do a quiz at the end. But then there's also an EMS module of that where you can do there's a lot of hours you can do online, but then you have to do your hands-on, the assessments and your practicals in a group session. And we try wherever we can, if we can submit for CH or credit hours for the providers to make it easier for them, we will, because there's so many of them. Really no changes in 336, 337, 339, or 340, or 341. 341, you notice there was a spike, but that was we've pushed to, the hospitals collectively and statewide, we have to purchase our own drugs now. And we own the drug box, so the drug box is ours. What we use out of that, it's a 1-for-1 exchange. You buy it, you pay for this, and depending if so the vehicle checks, when we do those, if you notice that a drug is going to expire, we do drug log checks every day because we're audited. But we do our drug log checks every day. If you have a drug that's expiring 30 days out, we take that drug and we can get that. Go to the pharmacist or the pharmacy at the hospital. We have an agreement with each pharmacy. We can swap that drug out so that we have one that has a later expiration date versus one that's going to expire. So they can be spent by them. And hopefully they'll, if they need it, they can use that one at the hospital, but that was part of the agreement that we had. Building 0, collection, health officer and rescue collection fee.
What happened on 344
Oh,
that
sorry.
caused it to go down?
The cardiac monitors,
We bought 2.
but, I'm sorry, yeah.
We financed them.
2 cardiac monitors, Zoll cardiac monitors were purchased last year. The X series were purchased last year, and they were financed, so that will move to the lease line.
Yep.
And those should theoretically be a 10 to 12 year, well, if you go 10, but we went 12 on the other one because we were trying to shuffle so much stuff around. Piece of equipment, and they change, they get calibrated in the, so the number, we have to send it up to be certified and calibrated annually, part of the maintenance agreement. Next year, we don't have it this year, but just FYI, like with that, some of the other equipment runs out. We bought that, the stair chairs we bought when we bought the previous ambulance. And when we purchased the power cots, we added an extended maintenance program for 5 years. That's up after this year. So we'll need to budget dollars for those stretches for PM and maintenance. And the stretches were $15,000, $18,000 a piece. Anybody remember?
Jeepers.
In that ballpark per stretcher. So there's a lot of parts on it. If you run, you can run the risk of not running a maintenance program or contracting with them. And if you do that, you pay a lot more for the parts. And you pay for them to come, and they charge you from the time you call them to the time they arrive at your door. From Stryker.
What are they rated for weight?
It depends. I think the stretchers are actually at like 375. If we get some bigger people, you can get by with them. It takes extra people to lift them. And if you go, they have a bariatric truck with it. We can call it if we need it. But
You're not required to meet a certain standard for weight.
what's that?
600
Yeah.
pounds.
And I shouldn't even tell you a number because I'd have to look at it. I don't recall the weight.
It's always changing.
Yeah, it's printed on the side of it. It's on the handle, or one of those bars on the side. Batteries and the normal stuff for those are consumables, or they wear out, they die, and DeWalt used to manufacture batteries for those. They're a 24-volt fan-cooled battery. DeWalt decided that they didn't have a market for them and discontinued making them. So there's another company out west that we found that took on this battery type, and we've been buying an aftermarket battery from them. So let's see. Subscription fee. That really hasn't changed. We still do that once a year. Employee retention recruitment, Memorial Day, flags, graveside markers. Line 356 is changing a little bit. Our contract is up, and so the state of Maine, through this 911 service stuff, has decided that it would be best if we implement something called Emergency Fire Dispatch, or EFD. We've had EMD, Emergency Medical Dispatch, and we've had that for several years. But EFD is brand new and is being launched. So we're making the switch. Actually, we have some people that are in the training program today, tomorrow, and Saturday in Sanford for the EFD program. Mark Cunningham's attending that. But it's nothing more than trying to get every dispatcher in the state to be able to answer and dispatch the calls the same way. You may have some different deviations a little bit with it, but it'll be the same type of questions. You'll interrogate your callers. You'll ask them key questions, and depending on what triggers additional questions, they use priority dispatch. It'd be medical priority because it was primarily just for the medical dispatching portion. But priority dispatch has a patented program where it's flip charts on the computer, but you flip through, you ask questions, and depending on what you say, if you have a building fire, the dispatcher may ask a couple other pointed questions, but then it's going to tell them they need a dispatch. and they have Pro QA for that, and it's electronically done in their CAD system. But so with that, there's also the quality control and the need for review, so they've upped their fee a little bit for dispatch. And it will change this year and next year by 25 cents each. 50,
Per resident, you mean?
correct, per capita. And it's based on the previous census. It would change on the next census date. And we have a very small seasonal change, a couple $100 built into it. So, 357 repeater maintenance repairs. It's really just, it's probably mislabeled. There's a lot of our leasing in there is what that is, for the most part, for Southern Maine Communications. We lease a repeater off in Fort Ridge, and we lease a repeater which is located on the site on Ossipee. And then the other one is a paging program that is CAD interfaced with our comm center in dispatch, and it's a text mapping software, so we get the messages for calls electronically through the CAD system. Do you want me to touch base on Ossipee at all?
Oh, I think, yeah, we're recording now, so let's give us a couple-minute version of the problems on top of the mountain.
So I could give you a 2-hour version of the problem on top of the mountain, and I don't think I have enough time.
It's depressing.
I'm really frustrated with it. We need to have some support from probably legal aspect of land acquisition or someone that is good with land options. We are on top of Ossipee. We have been for years, 20 years or more, or whatever. There's been a public safety entity up there for a long time. The land is owned by Robert Carroll on the top of the mountain, and been a great guy to deal with, and great to talk with, and communicates, and wants to be communicated with. So I've tried to communicate with him. A year and a half ago, Verizon started talking about getting out of the tower business. So they don't want to maintain tower sites. So they've agreed or started working with a company called American Tower, ATC, you commonly see. They put a new building up there. They took over the site. American Tower obviously came in. I don't think they care much about the town of Waterboro or the communities they're in at this point. We communicated with Verizon because they had equipment up there, a generator that serves power to us. The closet we were in, that we've been in, we pay power instead of Central Maine Power. But we've always benefited from the generator that was used by Verizon Wireless to power their infrastructure up there as well. With their move into a new building, they no longer needed this generator. With the move to American Tower is not maintaining any of the other infrastructure that was left behind from Verizon. So Verizon offered to us about a year ago. It's been challenging because you have to go through so many different layers, and nobody even knows what Ossipee looks like. Never mind, they just know it's a site, and that's that they go by site numbers. Verizon wanted to donate the infrastructure that remained up there originally to the town of Hollis. They'd communicated with them because Hollis is up there as well. And so Hollis is no longer there, and they want to donate the equipment, which includes a building and a generator. Presumably the tower as well, I guess, or the small tower. It's a small 60-foot guided tower. The building we're in and all the other equipment sits on land that was transferred from Verizon to American Tower. They can't give up any equipment without having the town have lease rights to the site, so within the confines of the fenced-in area. We communicated with American Tower. We thought this was going to be a simple process. So did Verizon. American Tower came back and said yes. It was thousands of dollars. It was expensive. Sent some of the information to Gary.
Thousands per month.
Per month, and for a long period of time that they would only agree to for a lease agreement. We went back and forth in some conversation. I'm like, whoa, put the brakes on. I said, that's not what that's not what I had signed up for. So I really stopped talking to them a little bit. Reached back out to Verizon directly because I didn't want. They sent it off to the legal team, and it was expensive. And basically, we had two options: we could move right now or stop paying. And we've signed nothing or done anything with the agreement because we didn't want to get tied into a lease agreement up there yet. So I reached back out to Bob Carroll. What's that?
I was just gonna say
Oh,
Carol.
yeah. I reached back out to Bob Carroll, sent him a couple different letters, explained the situation, and I've asked him for his help. I've asked him for land up there on top of the hill, immediately to the right of the tower. If anybody's been up there, it's we're the small shack to immediately to the right. If we could have a lease agreement with him either for more land, or if he could look at the language of the agreements with Verizon and anybody that may transfer lease rights to, if we potentially could take the spot that we're in today. I doubt that the building out back is going to be of any benefit to us, unfortunately, because it's a great facility. It's a building that's not being used by anybody. It's vacant, but American Tower has a site lease, so it'd be best for them to either buy it from Verizon down the road and lease it, or dispose of it. But, so there's this quick picture, but we have a lot of potential costs down the road, or we can do something creatively.
And what's our backup if that site goes down or away?
Waterboro is in a really poor position for that because OSFI blocks a lot of signal for us. And the other spot that would be good is probably down where the other tower is, with privately owned too, but
That still leaves a shadow though, right?
that's the problem you have. You can go directional on some of them, but it becomes problematic. The real bad area for us is Route 5. Surprisingly, you'd think, oh wow, why is that a bad spot? Because the way the antennas work, they don't necessarily. It's not just like, oh, you get an antenna, you're covering everything. They're directional to certain areas. So,
Line of sight.
yeah, line of sight, but there's also like within a span, a width.
Like a beam.
Yeah, and right at the bottom, Route 5, up to Silas Brown Road and up to the road you live on the left, Clark's Bridge.
Road.
So on Clark's Bridge Road, you start getting into that area. That's really, and even Middle Road, a little piece of that. But we need it as a redundant. We need that site because it still covers areas that we can't get. When you get a little bit further beyond there, our Fort Ridge site is blocked by OSFI. So stay tuned. We need to. So I talked to Bob a week and a half ago, and he'd already sent it to his attorneys, and he's out in Switzerland, or he's overseas someplace for the winter. He won't be back till June. We missed him this year. He left much earlier than normal. So more to come.
Good, thank you.
And you're several $100,000 for a tower, complete, roughly. Per foot, 10-foot sections.
So for hydrants, we built in $3,000 in case there was a rate increase. We may find out before town meeting, like we did last year, that we don't need to have that $3,000 there. Same usual annual story on Ross Corner Fire Department, a third of their budget. And I guess, what other questions do you have for the chief before we move to the CIP? Hearing none,
So,
go to page 18, please.
Matt, one quick thing about that tower. Is there a drop dead date where that thing's gonna disappear, one way or the other?
We have not gotten that yet at all. And actually, I sent an email today, and this is the concern I've got with that site right now today. Is we tried to get fuel put into that generator, 3 months ago, before snow flew. I wanted to get the generator serviced and fuel. Talked to Verizon because we didn't technically own it. They were fine with it. They didn't have any issues with it. So, presumably, it was fueled. We believe it may have been fueled and Verizon paid for it. We worked to set up the account because I talked to them and they said, oh, we went out and serviced it. So, we believe that it was serviced. We can't validate that because there's snow on the ground and we didn't have a way to get up there yet. But today, a Verizon guy called or emailed and said that they received an alarm from the generator. Now, what does that alarm mean? Whether it's in failure, whether it's in, I don't know. I don't know. But
It must be self-testing.
it tests weekly, so it sends an alarm to them. They monitor it. But so our problem is we don't own land up there. And the land that we, you know, the land, I think the other land that we had up there is the land trust has. So, and I believe that this, I'm not sure there's any space that's gonna be usable because of the space that's given to the distance for that current tower that's up there on the site. That may be problematic. I don't know what we're gonna do. We need to have a conversation about that and scope that out. You know, I really don't know as if a voter system or a more complex system is what we need, because it's like a digital, or those are just problematic. Our system has been working back, it's the same system that's been in place for, I don't know, 35 years now, 30 years, whatever. Whatever we went to the UHF system. Before that was low band. Wasn't the best system, but it was a non-repeated system, line of sight. But when we went to the UHF system, the repeaters that we've had built and that we've leased have been bulletproof. They're running on, you can call it older technology, but technology that doesn't malfunction. It's not like you can go buy a brand new ICOM base station repeater and spend $3,500. But Jeff Costas, the gentleman that we've worked with for years, he owns Fort Ridge, and he also owns Southern Maine Communications. Doesn't want to be traveling up to any tower site in a snowstorm or ice storm or any type of an event when it's the worst time to be working on a tower. So he's built systems that have been robust and they work great. And they have. We haven't been up to, since we put that repeater up almost 4 years ago on Ossipee, 4 years ago, we haven't touched it because it works. It does its thing, and no problems. Ted, you had asked, I think, a month or two ago or a while back about the bus garage. I did look into that.
Yeah.
Had I responded to you?
Yes.
Okay. Ted had a great idea, and he was going to come up with a solution to the problem, and hey, we're talking to the school department, and so we did that. The bus department, transportation department, sorry, uses Fort Ridge as well. They offer from Southern Maine Com. So, in Fort Ridge, if anybody doesn't know, is the Shapley Alfred Ridge up on the other side of Gore Road. There's a big tower up there.
Right, so at the bottom of page 18, I just want to show you the totals here that are tentative and incomplete. But with what I put in here so far, you can see that we've gone from 193,000 to almost 400,000. And we'll go down and talk about the fire truck now and the fire station, and then we'll probably have time this evening to go back and maybe talk about the rest of the CIP things that I did. Fire truck now?
Did you guys pass that already?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I did have a copy, so it's fine. We have plenty of copies, so share them. Surely. You have this already, though. You
Yes, I do. So on line 507, talking about replacing engine 3, and what you have in front of you is an inventory of the fleet and how old it is. This is the truck that is next to be replaced. That's estimated at $475,000. I put in a financing of at 4%. We should be able to do less than that, and brought it for 10 years. So, in the low to mid $50,000. So 55 in there should cover it. And maybe be a little more than what we need, because hopefully we can get down into the 3%. So, Matt, why don't you talk about why this truck needs to be replaced?
If we can go back in time a little bit. When this document, and I'll push, the one you see in front of you, the capital equipment list. When we originally created that, it looked a little bit different, but we started that about 10 years ago, and that was when engine 4 was purchased, and the ladder and the tanker. We purchased those 3 vehicles and air packs because we had a lot of aging equipment, and a lot of it needed to be replaced. So here we are today, obviously, and I was thinking about going back to some notes, and when we originally created it, our goal was that we need to look at 10 years down the road, because that's where a lot of the fleet was going to be, kind of in the middle of the road. Are you all familiar with the asset policy that the Board of Selectmen signed? I think they've done a couple updates to it, effective in 2005. Nobody?
Assume no.
Okay, well, the Selectmen have a fixed asset policy, which, Julie, you're familiar with it, correct? Okay, GASB 34.
Okay, part of it, yes.
Well, okay, so we have a fixed asset policy, the Board of Selectmen did, and I would assume that that's probably an effective way to look at the CIP program, but everything that you see identified on that list in the yellow contradicts what the policy says in terms of usefulness in life. And there's a nice chart, it's on the website, but it talks about everything that we have for infrastructure and equipment. So I just put that there. If you look at in the columns on that, just to explain, I put the year of the vehicle in the front, when it was purchased. If it's in the fixed asset policy, the X is the year, X, and then you see the year right beside it. So how many years, and then the age of the vehicles. And then I put the IDs, condition, replace, estimated replacements. Any questions on that document? Anything that would be more useful on that document?
No, it's pretty self-explanatory.
I think that's what Dennis was asking for the other night, so
I
unless he
know
got back to you.
He has seen that before in a different version.
Okay.
And I don't know if either one of you guys have seen it, because I think we didn't. I think we played with that several years back, quite a bit. So engine 3 is obviously one of the older trucks that we have. It's 20 years old. Right now, today, and one thing looking at the future is because today a truck, we can't go out tomorrow and pick a truck like we can a GMC pickup truck or a Chevy Silverado. They're not available. You can go find something if you want, but it's probably not what you want. So with that, you plan ahead because you spec it, and it's based on your needs. You have specs you draw up, and the truck is usually 10 to 12 month build time. And speccing and meeting with the companies is several months. So I honestly don't foresee a payment or a payment that would occur in next fiscal year budget. But that's I guess conversation piece of whatever. I know you plugged it in, but by the time you're said and done, the delivery is probably into the following fiscal year budget.
Right,
So
we need to do what we need to do for the budget, so that if it's approved, we have the legal authority to go out and order
There you
it.
go.
Then you can always carry it forward to the next year if you don't get your expenditure.
Yep.
Yeah.
So on the back, you see a summary sheet. I give you a quick summary. I would love for you to, you can certainly talk about it. We've looked at it. I gave you a quick snapshot. I can read it or you can read it, but engine 3 obviously it's a 1998 E1 Ford pumper. Originally purchased obviously 20 years ago. When purchased, the truck had to be small enough to fit into the apparatus bay at North Waterboro Fire Station. Today, the truck does not adequately allow us to carry the equipment and does not allow us to carry the appropriate number of firefighters to an event. It's a 2-person cab at best. Certainly, I've got a picture of it if you want to see the cab, but by the time you put the computer and the other stuff in that chassis and that truck, and with the turnout gear that the guys are wearing today, when you sit in there, the steering wheel is rubbing your pants. You have a hard time maneuvering it. And with the boots we're wearing now, the brake pedal and the fuel gas pedal, they're so close together in that truck versus a fire truck that it becomes a challenge. So this truck is missing a lot of the safety features. This truck is the one that had an issue about 3 months ago where it popped out of gear at a fire. We were on East Shore, and it popped out of gear, and it actually, thank gosh, there was a truck that was in front of it. Otherwise, it would have been an ossipy because it does not have overriding safety features that other trucks now have today. The air brake was on. However, the air brake's not holding it when you're idled up and you're throttled up on your pump. It's a completely different setup in this truck, and it pumped out of gear and it went forward, but it hit the back of another truck. So thankfully that truck was it. And thankfully we didn't run over the cop that was standing between the two trucks, but he jumped out of the way. So there are a lot of differences from the trucks that were built then to what there is today. Minimal compartment space. Pump repairs, I'm not surprised if we're going to be told if we're looking at a $4,000 to $8,000 minimal job, and pump repairs can be much greater than that, upwards of $20,000 plus. Again, no safety components. You're about a 1-year build time. Replacement engine puts us back within the capital program. because of the other vehicles that we have coming up out of the, or the piece of equipment we have. Try to step them differently so we're not in the same position we were 10 years ago. Because 10 years ago, we ended up replacing an engine. We replaced the ladder, we had to replace air packs, and we had to replace, what was it? It was another engine, another tanker. The replacement and moving of the truck around would allow us to change our run cards to lessen the burden on engine 4, which is the truck that was on that list, is a 2007. That 2007 truck, because again, the equipment that we're carrying today is different than the equipment carried in 1998. The compartmentation is different, and having space to carry what you need on each truck. Engine 4 ends up going out the door for motor vehicle crashes, and is a heavily used truck that, if we continue to use it the way we are today, you'll be replacing that before you replace engine 3. Because it's got as many hours and mileage as engine 3 does, and it's 10 years newer. So we want to move that to the side, if you will, and use that for other responses where we're using it in the same fashion we're doing today. On the back of that, I gave you a little health information of the truck. And just so you know, the truck that we in the proposal, of the base information that we went and got, and we haven't really done, we've done the tire kicking and the basic preliminary information, is that Buxton has one, almost identical to it. And there's another one nearby, Standish. So they're very similar trucks to what they have. I've never been into the whole bells and whistles and all the frills of it, and it's, unfortunately, we don't build the trucks here, so we can't control that. But so, any questions on the back health data so far? Have you perused that? One of the biggest changes would be the number of firefighters that would be transported in this vehicle. Right now, we're marginally at 2. I guess if you didn't have all the stuff in the middle, there's a shifter on the floor that was an aftermarket, or it was built that way, but if you didn't have the shifter and all the other crap that's in the cab, you might get 3 in there, but you put 3 people with turnout gear on, that diminishes, that's not going to work. But the guys don't, I do have a picture, you can see it, stop over and look at it if you want. I gave a little picture down at the bottom, there's a current replacement information, but then a little bleed down there, but we have 3 engines for protection. Just to give you a quick overview, every call they go on, there's a different function for a different truck, whether it's supply, backup, or attack. And a supply truck may go to a hydrant. Obviously, the tanker moves water back and forth. That's we have 2,500 gallons in that truck. We originally had 3 tankers in town. We have 1 now. But there's a little example, and what happens after? Our plan would be is to eliminate that truck, engine 3, once the replacement's in.
Sell it.
Yeah, sell it, trade it, whatever. And usually you can broker them if you want. We've brokered a few trucks before. There's pros and cons to that too. You're dealing with either someone traveling in and dealing with people across the country, and you're dealing with someone that's going to backline it and use it as a potential for a reserve truck rather than the front line using it every day. Someone's running very few calls. We sold the truck to Rangeley years ago. The truck went out 2 times a year, or 3 times a year. It was little use up there. So.
Before you head home for supper, I want to get your thoughts of line 503 at the top of page 19 in the budget. What are your thoughts on spending $100,000 to bring a water line in versus the same amount of money, give or take, for roof issues? Where would your priorities lie? What would
Roof versus water?
Yes.
I think the water is obviously a benefit to everybody. Not just the fire station. Obviously the fire station long term as well, but I think that's obviously a critical need for them. Closer to here, I don't know what the water district's going to plan to do if they're going to look at Old Alfred Road, but I think public water is, in my opinion, having a hydrant and having access is a great thing. On the other side of that, I think there is significant value to really address your energy and your issues that you're building. It's not getting any better.
Getting a lot worse.
It's getting worse, and it's not getting any cheaper. It is,
I mean, I lean towards fixing the building first. Would you disagree with that, from the fire standpoint?
no, I don't disagree with that.
If we can't do both this
If
year.
we can't do both.
Because it's degrading the building too. It's not degrading anything to wait a year to put a water line in.
Right.
Or your building is
Would agree with that.
Yeah.
You know, as it is now, the shingles are, need to be replaced, the roofing needs to be replaced, the siding is broken in multiple different spots. That's from the ice removal. The guys don't want to be on the roof anymore. And really, we have some issues if we get them on the roof, shovel and chip ice, when if it's not in their primary job function, that's fine if they don't get hurt. But when they do get hurt, there's going to be a lot of questions asked why they were chipping ice on the roof. And that's great, they want to help out. They've chipped ice here at the town hall before. I think the guys have said, yeah, they'll get up and chip ice. They said, honestly, they said when the girls at town hall chip ice on the roof, we'll get back up and chip ice. Why are we doing it every storm? And that's what they're doing. They were up there all the time. We spent $1,200 to have ladies' stockings put on the roof.
Stockings full of
Calcium.
Calcium.
We had 12 of them lined up across the roof. I don't know if anybody saw it. It was a show.
To eat down through the ice dam,
Right.
which helped,
Correct.
but
It did.
We shouldn't have to
And
do
then
that.
it warmed up after that, and then it snowed, and then the ice came back. So we just wasted $1,200. Taxpayers wasted a lot of money. And we've had energy audits. We've had this person come in and look. We had Sebago Technics came up last year. We paid them money. We got a page-and-a-half report. We had another guy this year come out and tell us, and everybody wants us to have all these opinions from everybody else because they can't believe what we've told them. But the reality is there's problems. Brianna was supposed to come over for a station tour. Unfortunately, she hasn't made it yet. A couple weeks ago, I would love for her to stop over to see the station. In the last 3 weeks, I think I gave attic tours at least 12 times, and we were close to almost need to put a budget article in here for a full set of stairs to the attic, because that's how many times we were up and down this pull-down stairs. They probably should be used once or twice a year. But really, we're up in the attic, crawling around, looking at the attic, wasting time. Why? Why are we continuing to do this? We've put a Band-Aid on, and we keep on putting Band-Aids constantly. Out back, we just had a cement jersey barrier dropped off, to protect the propane tanks. It looks horrible. It looks horrible. I asked Gary today, I said, we need to talk with Dave Benton, because, if we're going to make a park outside and fix those trees, I really hope we have a plan that we can get rid of the stumps so it doesn't look completely ridiculous.
oh, he's planning on stumping it.
It'll be step by step.
Yeah.
Well, but I mean, if it takes, I just don't want to, have, like we had at Friendship Park, have, 13 piles of loam in the back of and have 50 different stumps all over the place. I think the guys, they take pride in what they've got out there. They're out there mowing the grass constantly. They've put flowers in. Judy Carl comes down and has donated her time with the flower beds at the signposts. They will help with whatever they can, but I think they're exhausted. They're exhausted with the lack of support for that.
It's a morale issue
Oh, the morale is in the toilet.
because
There's
of
no question.
the recent elections.
I think I think that doesn't help, but, showering in the bay, in that decon shower, doesn't work. You're on the cement floor, the same floor that you share the apparatus bay with, the same floor that you're supposedly calling decon, and it's a 28-inch wide shower. Okay, I'm not saying I'm not a Slim Jim, that's for sure, and I don't think I can turn around there effectively. Never alone bend over and I'm going to kick the bar of soap out, and then I'm going to go pick it up in the bed. I don't think anybody wants to see that, first of all. I'm not sugarcoating it. It is what it is. And these costs, I see Limericks looking for $800,000. There's a part of me that says, I wish them the best of luck. The other part of me says, I know they don't have enough money, because it's not like we've done this. We've done this process. I think we've killed it how many times? We've looked at it. We've gone to the cost estimate. The people that do it every day. I build a shed. I'll build a shed. Okay, that's what I'm going to build. And I'll tell you what I'm going to build a shed for. I'm probably going to spend more because I screwed up more lumber. However, I haven't built a building that size. We hired, we talked to Wright Ryan. We had the guys that actually do it all the time.
Yeah.
They cost estimated it. They estimated these costs. The architect says this is what you need for space. I know we didn't agree with it, for square footage. I didn't agree with having to have bathrooms either. But it was beyond me because, and I think, it was beyond me whether we had bathrooms or not, but the main plumbing code said you're going to have X number of bathrooms. The architect did that. Now, if the email that came out today from the CEO is true on the MUBIC and the building code requirement, that's going to put us all in a whole nother ballgame, and the cost just went up even more with the requirement for a sprinkler system. Because you're not going to have a choice. You're going to have to sprinkler it up front. And that's going to be that's a whole other issue. So the costs have just continuously gone up on this project.
Just for compliance is a big ticket these days.
Well, we're going to find the compliance when one of the guys, something happens. The apparatus bay, the suppression system does not exist, obviously. The fire alarm system is in the back of the building, built by when it was designed. If there was an event in the apparatus bay, I'd say a risk assessment, you have a higher risk of a fire starting where the trucks are, with the number of components that we have, electrical connections, battery power, they're plugged into shoreline. If something were to start in the bay, the only time they're going to know about it is when the fire is knocking on the door to the makeshift bunk rooms upstairs, because there is no detection, smokes in the bay because of the trucks. So they're going to know about it when they can't get out. That's when those guys are going to know about it. And I think the morale has been an issue. We've had a lot of events over the last year that certainly hasn't helped it. And these guys are here for you, and they want to perform and do the best they can.
It's turning into an us and them kind of situation.
I'm curious about what you folks are going to recommend to the selectmen in terms of what should we do, or what should the selectmen do next for the station. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Tell me, what is the thoughts on building another fire station? Just doing basic upkeep, like you say, fix the roof, fix what's down there, but building another fire station.
I mean, you're in the $3 to $5 million category. We couldn't get $750,000 passed to fix this one.
What is Limerick looking to build for $800,000?
They have no plans.
They're just asking
they're
for a
just-
ceiling.
Yeah, they're just
Okay.
throwing a figure out there.
But they've been turned down. They're also coming down from, what, $2 million?
That was 3.2 they
Yeah.
came down from.
The same thing that happened to us.
So they didn't actually have a plan, though. I mean, when we went to the referendum vote, we had a whole plan from the architect that we had paid for because we had approved the $25,000 the year before.
We didn't have a stamp, we didn't have a final stamp from the engineering point of view, but we had a lot of plans in place.
We had good numbers, construction numbers, and the $2 million was for a 15 to 20 year use, space-wise. And then coming back for the 750 to have that not pass. I mean, we're wondering what we should do.
I think that money that we talked about before, a couple meetings ago, that they found in the audit, the $2 million that,
Oh, well, that's not new. I mean,
It's not new.
we always have a fund balance there. We don't draw that down to nothing. I mean, we could pay for the 750
right,
in cash, that's what you're referring to.
Yes.
We could do that, and that would not be an inappropriate stretch for the fund balance we have. I don't know if that gets us more votes because it would not affect the tax rate.
right.
It's taxpayer money, and it's perfectly fine to spend it that way. Selectmen have to make a decision whether we, take that to the voters. I guess would be probably November of this year. And I don't know that. We haven't talked much about that.
I think that would be the best. And if you can really explain to the voters that this isn't costing you, well, it is costing you money, but is not going to raise your taxes.
So Don, I'm curious about
So
why you'd
I'm
want to.
curious will voters say, I want a rebate?
A rebate for what?
Well, no,
My
you
extra
can't-
taxes?
You can't do that.
Can't do
No,
that.
no.
No,
That's-
it's a reserve, it's in a reserve fund.
That we're required
That-
to have, right, by charter.
Well, you get two things. We have a crisis fund that's $1.1 million, essentially 1/12 of our budget, that is
To
there
carry-
for true emergencies, not for what we're talking about now.
Right.
If this building burned down, we could use that to build something else. But the other aspect of it is that we have a healthy fund balance, which is good. You always want to have that. I always try and collect more revenues than we budget for and spend less money than we think we're going to. And I've done that every year I've been here, which means you put from $100,000 to maybe $200,000 each year in that fund balance. And we use $400,000 to $500,000 a year in the budget against taxes to lower the tax rate going into the budget. And town meeting votes on that every year. It's been it was 500,000 this past year, it was 400 for each of those other years. And it's still grown, which is a healthy thing. So I'm curious of why you think the community would want to spend the 3 to 5 million for a fire station if we can't do what they've already said no to.
Oh, I don't think the community would spend 3 to 5 million for a fire station.
So for the square footage we have now, you'd be spending at least 3
Oh, to build a new one.
at $225 a square foot.
225 to 250 in the
Right,
ballpark.
right.
And some of our numbers were always, the numbers we mostly got was because we already had land and we already had a lot of the components that we were gonna use.
We have water and septic
Correct.
and electricity.
Yeah.
Do we still own the land in North Waterboro?
No,
We never owned the land. That land was never owned by us.
Oh, okay.
We had the land, it was used by us as long as there was a building on it. You know what the other station was? You know what the old North Station was? Yeah.
Mhm.
In the footprint there, we'd had a committee that looked at that that spot was just about larger than what you see was paved there on the ground, it was maybe 10 feet back. The truck was parked in the roadway to back in the building, in the roadway, when you pull it out of the building. You're looking at a lot of money for another station, a lot. And in the market where we're going, the numbers we're seeing just in the last couple of years, even that year that we looked at with that 750,000, boy, there were times at the last, we were coming closer and closer. I told him several times, maybe I was being a pessimist, but you start running the numbers and talking to the people at the cost estimating firm, and the numbers are changing with construction materials so fast. Well, you're going to be paint the walls, at the end of the day. And okay, so when we're putting the feelers out there, if they can get $800,000, if it's not enough to do it, if they carry it forward, whatever, if they approve it. Don't know, maybe that's a better approach. Maybe I don't think we should spend another dime on planning or architect fees.
We're done with that.
We're done.
No.
I mean, the town spent what, $30,000? Is that what it is now?
On what?
On architectural fees and research and
Oh,
Scoping this out?
probably, with adding everything else
I
in,
think-
engineers, yeah.
I think we're gonna stop that. It's ridiculous, but the cost for the maintenance, just to do the upkeeps, the needed repairs. Okay, so we put a metal roof on it. We're gonna spend what, $125,000 to $140,000 to put the 2-inch styrofoam insulation or that, what do we call it, and put metal roof on. And if you do anything down the road, you rip half of that off anyways, so you just wasted all that money. I don't know. You get a lot of, it's either the budget committee or the selectmen have to figure out what they're gonna do with their infrastructure.
So what clicked in your mind to even think about building a new station?
What's that?
What clicked in your mind to even bring that up, building a new station?
Well, I figured that what you had to do to reconfigure what the existing fire station there, also the fact that you have down the road, when you're talking 15, 20 years, that whole area up there might be developed enough that you might want something up there. Now, when they closed that North Waterboro Fire Station, insurance went up for a lot of people in Lake Arrowhead because they were now within 3 miles from a fire station, even though it was a volunteer fire station.
And nobody was there.
it was still considered a fire station.
That percentage of what the increase is, if you really start driving that down, of what the actual cost would be to build the station, they're cheaper to pay that extra premium in their insurance at this point. ISO in
But
the,
we made out because Lake Arrowhead went and put in hydrants in our community. I mean, the town put in so much money, but they put in hydrants. Now you have a whole water supply when you come up to Arrowhead and you have to fight a fire. There was a brush fire right down the street from my house last fall. That if you need it, it's there to refill a truck.
absolutely. ISO insurance, that whole insurance thing, you know what? We have Coventry Station, but we can't use it because 117 doesn't go all the way through. You can't access it. And it's 5 miles. It's a 5 mile rate. If you're 5 miles or more from a fire station. But Arrowhead also gets credit because of the pressurized hydrants now. And we just actually went through a full ISO review. So we're anticipating some favorable numbers versus when the last time we were done, which was 18, 19, 20 years ago. It was a long time ago. So met with an ISO rep about a month ago. We met for almost 6 hours, thereabouts, and we reviewed everything. And they look at pump capacity, they look at our comm center, they look at what we do every day, they look at what we're spending on equipment, where we put the equipment, and it all plays into these numbers and what they have. You know, do we carry X? What do we carry for hose? What do we carry for? How many firefighters do we have? So they look at all of it and they come up with this new formula. ISO benefits the commercial properties far more. The insurance companies don't always look at that 5 mile radius. And I think anyway, it'd be worth shopping around for your insurance to see other carriers too. Waterboro is not the only community in Maine that has a fire station that's beyond 5 miles from someone's house because who can afford it? And I think where you were driving a minute ago, you were talking about a station relocating one up to North Waterboro and just doing that. South Waterboro can't hold anything except for some small apparatus. So anything we put in South Waterboro has to be specially built. The current ambulances will not fit into the station down there. The problem with moving it up there is, moving one up to, let's say, Clark's Bridge Road, Dollar General area, not a bad concept, but you're not anywhere as close to you're 17 miles away from Lake Sherburne at that point, or Ross Corner, or they don't have an EMS service, so by the time you get an ambulance from here to up there, whether you call us or, depending on what the event is, you may be calling another service to come pick you up because it's so far out. We're centrally located now. We've been able to service both that direction and South Waterboro. If money wasn't an object at the end of the day, if you had a station at the end of Old Alfred Road in that vicinity and a station up by Dollar General, and you continue with your contract at Ross Corner, it'd be doable. But money's an issue.
Is it realistic to think that the town of Waterboro and the town of Limerick could work together and build a station for both towns?
Well, I went there and broached that idea a year and a half ago, I think. Got myself invited to a selectmen's meeting up there to talk just about that. And I did it with a smile on my face and said sometime in the next, I don't know if I used 20 or 50 years, I said the two towns ought to get together and build a fire station. And I know that at least two of the selectmen didn't give that 2 cents worth of thought. And politically, I think there's no will to do that right now with the existing board up there. And probably the town also. Because heaven forbid if something isn't within the municipal boundaries that we treat so sacrosanctly now that you have to have that within the boundaries. Ideally, what we could have is a bridge across Lake Arrowhead, and then you could put one right on 5, right where the narrow part of the lake is. We don't have that bridge. So it either comes down to Chadbourne Ridge Road or goes up into Limerick so you can come in from the north side down into the
Yeah, so
the
I could see
subdivision.
Limerick's idea is that anything down this end doesn't access, as he was talking about, in North Waterboro, you can't access Lake Sherburne from here, and same with Limerick.
Right.
We cover, 57 square miles? A very large area of town that we're trying to cover. I mean, of course, remember back we had 4 stations originally. And the 4 stations, you know, so they were smaller, they were, you know, kind of the sections that were, been all talked about on the planning aspect, but has it worked where we are today? Yeah, I mean, South Station, we put some money into it, we've refurbed it, it's, for what we're using it today for, it's fine, but the list doesn't shrink of what we're doing with our infrastructure, and what are we doing? What is the plan for the infrastructure? I don't know if the board has a thought, but, you know, everybody thinks you want to spend money. It's not we want to spend money. We're trying to protect your investment of infrastructure and where you are for the future. I don't think Waterboro's going away. And what do?
And that's where we're at. We're very frustrated in knowing what else we should do next.
You know,
And
and I'll
at our wits' end at times.
we had some correspondence, and I think it was a very nice email from Dennis. The chairman sent us a message, and one of our takeaways from our last meeting. You were at the meeting, and I believe the 2 of you were at that last meeting we had. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it, I think it was a complete waste of time. We all sat here and we stared at each other. We all knew about the issue. I don't think we could talk any more about it. We'd already discussed it. And I think we'd a prep going. This is what we're going to present. I don't think we did anything. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but the takeaway out of that, we didn't get anything to do with. You know,
So we had nobody there from the Public Safety Committee, which was disappointing, but that happens. But there was no new information. And I think we're done sitting around needing to talk anymore. And
It's definitely time to stop talking and actually do something. Because if we don't do something with the existing building, as it was stated a little while ago, that building's eventually going to start to collapse.
Or be condemned.
it's going to rot or mold because the water's in the walls.
I mean, again, 2 years ago, whatever, I made a comment sitting right there at that table at one of the meetings that, you know, I was being asked questions why I wanted to sit where I am today. And I said, look what happened in Lebanon. Their building ended up with a hole in the middle of the floor. They can't use the building. The same thing's going to happen here if we don't do something. And granted, you're going to aggravate the crap out of some people, but you've got to do something before the building is completely useless and not be able to be used by you or anybody else after the fact.
And I know we have our own struggles of trying to get that information out. I mean, I think that meeting you had asked that you were surprised that we had people walk in for medical calls. We had, you remember, I think you had asked, you have medical calls. Yeah, and I think what my takeaway was, I was frustrated that how does Donna not know that we have medical calls at the fire station where there's an ambulance parked? And I was frustrated thinking, how do we get this out there? How do we get this message out there? But there needs to be a lot more engagement. And I've met Brianna one time, and she sat back here at that meeting, I think, late, came in.
Yeah.
I waited 45 minutes to an hour for her for the last meeting at the fire station for a tour. We're probably going to have another attic tour or something, whatever, but we were going to do it. There was no show. The frustration from us is that we're putting this time in for the community, and there is zero engagement back. And let's be all in. And we do this with our guys at the fire station. If we were to kind of run it like everybody at the fire station is, hey, if you don't want to come around in 6 months, why are you here? If you're not actively involved, why are you staying? Move on.
And all the open houses we had last year to promote that.
What a waste of time.
Yeah, nobody showed up.
You know, and we sat there, and he and I we looked at each other, and I mean, like Tim and all, but I think we looked at each other long enough in the office that I think you were sitting in one of the chairs. You were sicker than a dog, I think, or one of us was sick. But we're all staring at each other.
Nobody's
And
walking.
I don't know why, because people just don't seem to have an interest in the open houses, the information.
Because people are coming here to live, and they're traveling
And
to
it
work.
is very
and
much there's kind of like two different towns here. There's the people, a lot of the people that grew up here, that spent decades here, and there's a lot of the bedroom community here.
And they get a smaller and smaller percentage
Of the people
that
that,
grew up here.
You know, but we
it
find
is
that-
evidenced by town meetings that got, the attendance dropped every year. But people are just, everybody's so busy But you would think, I mean, you had the video that went on a year and a half ago, and that was on all the time, the flyers that went out.
Yeah, we mailed those to, in theory, and every household in
Yeah,
town.
but the post office dropped off 1,300 of them at the town hall, you know, and we had to come pick them up and bring them back to the post office. I mean, thank gosh we paid for that. You know, they put them all in the mailbox, the whole pile of them in the box was out there by the road. Yeah, so there was frustration. I think that there was this, the troops over there was a lot of frustration. I don't blame them. I think that, I understand.
Even when I talk to people, whether I'm for it or against it, I mean, when I talk to people about it over the course of the last 2 years, people would say, you know, and it doesn't concern me, the town's gonna do what the town's gonna do.
They don't need them until they need them.
Yeah, and all of a sudden, it's pretty
When
important.
my house is on fire, why aren't they here right now to blow out the match that started the fire? That's what the mentality is, it seems.
Well, I raised this, let's pull it back into the budget, and at some point in time, Matt, you can go home and have supper, you don't need to stay for the rest of this. You'll see that I didn't put anything in here at all for dollars at the moment, and we can certainly do that. But right now, the CIP, without Old Alfred Road, which is gonna be another 6 figures, has doubled. And I don't know that can stay. I mean, maybe the water line comes out and we fix the building. Even though that can be a risk that you might rip up a perfectly good roof in a few years. Old Alfred Road on line 516, and at the bottom of page 19, David's gonna get hard prices, and I think I've mentioned this to you before, supposedly DOT is gonna pay 50% of that substantial shimming and paving in a proper Old Alfred Road to get rid of the mess we have here now. So, any other questions for the chief?
Could I just have a brief follow-up question on communications? Do you know of any emergency departments in Maine that use satellite communications, SATCOM? I
No.
don't think so.
I don't. Is it a telephone or?
It would just be a system of satellite.
Direct from the satellite?
communication, Yeah, so you wouldn't have the repeaters and the line of sight communication.
I'm not familiar with it at all. Not at all. Any other questions for me?
Thank you, Matt.
I'll give you this, I don't have a couple copies, so you're gonna share.
What is it that you haven't, is this redundant from what you've already given out?
No.
Oh.
You don't need that.
There's more,
There's a lot of detail.
a whole tree.
No, this is the birch. You have to share, can you guys share that? And then, like, I can get you one, you actually have these numbers in there.
Yeah, thank you.
But this is just this is what drives all these numbers, and you actually have to look at it like this. But, okay?
All right.
Ready to read it?
Thank you.
Make it into strips later on, no?
There you go.
Okay?
Do you folks want to keep going and maybe finish the status of the CIP here, or do you want to go home?
I don't know, how about you?
Yeah, I think it's a good time to call it.
Okay.
Don't hold back.
So you're adjourning?
Yeah.
Goodbye.
Good
Thank
night.
you, Matt.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
I'll push the right thing this time.
Okay, I don't know if David's still here,
Okay.
but
I make a
left.
motion